Hey everyone, my name is Brian Matiash and I'd like to welcome you to episode 2 of my photo Q&A series. Today's question comes from Sator, the author of an article published by Petapixel, masterfully shellacked with clickbait by using the title, "Why Sony's Full-Frame Pro Mirrorless Was a Fatal Mistake." Now before I dive in, I'd like to make a disclaimer that I'm a Sony artisan of imagery and one of their product ambassadors. I use Sony cameras exclusively because they meet my needs. I'm not paid by Sony, nor am I being endorsed by them to make these videos. All the opinions in this video are of my own. In Sator's opening paragraphs, he writes, "There's a big craze for Sony full-frame mirrorless cameras at the moment, and seeing people rush onto that bandwagon is like watching lemmings following each other over the cliff. Many fanboys can be heard triumphantly declaring the victory over full-frame mirrorless over the DSLR. But like George W. Bush's declaration of mission accomplished, this triumphalism is grossly premature. I'm allowed to say this because I am a Sony full-frame mirrorless owner after I too was suckered into following the mindless herd over the cliff. It was largely a mistake. How could I have been so foolish?" I understand this is a controversial claim, so let's go through the reasons for this bold statement. And before you accuse me of being a Sony hater, I can assure you that the increasingly frustrated A-mount crowd are applauding me. For there's a simple question hanging over the full-frame Sony FE mount system. What is the point of professional-grade full-frame mirrorless? The way I see it, there are two questions here. How could I have been so foolish? And what's the point of a professional-grade full-frame mirrorless? So to answer your first question, I'd like to introduce the famous Latin phrase, caveat emptor. In English, this basically means, let the buyer beware. For whatever reason, you chose to buy your Sony camera. Maybe it was because the attention the A7 line has gotten over the past few years, or it was because you didn't do the appropriate research for yourself. But at one point, you must have added the camera to your cart and clicked buy now. Beyond that, whether or not the camera met your own personal needs as a photographer is entirely your call to make. But somewhere along the way, you clearly felt duped about your purchase, and this manifested in you writing this article. Now, listen, no one other than you can answer why you feel foolish about your purchase. Don't get me wrong, I've had my share of buyer's remorse in the past, but that usually results in me returning the item if I still can, or if I can, I'll just resell it. What's never happened to me as a result of purchase gone sour is the urge to write this long-winded article dubbing a company's product strategy as a fatal mistake, especially when all the sales figures and general press around the product strategy has been exceptionally impressive, no matter which way you slice it. So let's move on to your second question. What's the point of a professional-grade full-frame mirrorless? To answer that, I'll have to break my rule of not answering a question with a question. But who cares? Now listen, I don't mean that in an apathetic or divisive way. I just don't understand the need to parse a company's product strategy in such a peculiar way. Sony, like many other industry companies, has a wide range of camera products. Some have been hits, others have been flops, but one thing that you have to admire about them is their tenacity to innovate. That's the very reason why I made that first step away from Canon to Sony. I'm a big fan of companies that are willing to take risks and innovate. But let's go back to the question of who cares. And I ask this not of the author, but of the readers of that article and of the viewers of this video. Who cares? I'm of the belief that virtually any camera in the market today, including smartphone cameras, can create wonderful photos for the person holding it 90% of the time. So 9 out of the 10 times, a person can lift the camera that they have, take a photo, and walk away with something that's properly exposed. And whether or not it's an engaging or well-composed shot is an entirely different story for a different video. The remaining 10% of the time is reserved for specific instances and genres of photography, and in those cases I wholeheartedly believe that there are particular cameras and lenses that will provide superior results. Maybe you're a concert photographer and low light performance is critical, or you're a sports photographer and you need a super high frame rate. For these 10% niche instances, I can appreciate fussing over product offerings on the market. But for the remaining 90% of the time, instead of concerning yourself about why a company chooses to build camera A or B with features X, Y, or Z, focus your efforts on actually using the camera you already have. Whether it's an entry-level kit camera, a smartphone, or a high-end full-frame beast, just go at it and don't worry about the cameras you don't have. Ultimately though, I think all of this could have been avoided had the author simply rented the camera before buying it. No review on the internet could come close to the personal experience of actually using a camera or a lens your way. And there are tons of rental companies out there that will let you rent a camera and a lens for a week or two, and it won't cost you that much. It'll be a lot more economical to do that than to have to deal with buying a camera and figuring out a month or two later for whatever reason that it's not for you, and then spending a lot of precious time writing a long article about a product's roadmap and how it's a fatal mistake. Instead of doing all of that, Spend your time getting to know the camera you have, use it to its maximum potential, and then yeah, if you want to upgrade, go try renting one out. Go to the local camera store in your town and see what they have to say. But don't worry about what other companies are doing. Trust me, it will do nothing to improve your photography. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you on our next photo Q&A.